Thank you for joining us today. I have a very special guest with me, Gretel Jane. She's here to tell us about her trauma story and how it's impacted her life. Gretel, do you mind first by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am currently living in the southeastern corner of Australia in a place called Albury, which is, for anyone who's not familiar with Australia, it's about 3.5 hours north of Melbourne. Lovely temperate climate, pouring with rain today. And I live here with my two teenage children who I've raised on my own since they were babies, and I left an abusive relationship. So I work as an integrative somatic therapist and coach, and I support solo mums to rebuild and recreate. Um, yeah, just sort of reconnect, rebuild, and to create a life that they love. From the chaos that can be single parenting, especially after the drama of separation.
Yes, and that's amazing.
Yeah, there you go. It's a start.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And can you tell us about your trauma story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I've kind of hinted already, I left an abusive relationship. So I suppose that's a really big part of my trauma story. From what I now know about trauma, um, you know, there's a lot of things that happened a lot earlier in my life that have contributed to that. Nevertheless, you know, the trauma story is about that abusive relationship and the process of leaving, and then managing life with and raising two kids on my own. So she says with a laugh. Yeah. No mean feat. But so for 12 years, I was living with a very troubled man. And yeah, interestingly, we met overseas. He's from overseas. So I met him when I was traveling. And yeah, I was attracted to sort of the bad boy thing back in the day, which was actually, I understand now is my own, sort of trauma pattern that was playing out.
Mm.
And yeah, we got up to all kinds of things with drugs and yeah, just yeah. And I was incredibly in love with him. And, we decided that, getting married was a good idea. And so we ended up moving back to Australia. And yeah, there's an interesting turning point in this story where I was at a moment where I thought, gosh, am I going to go back to Australia without him? Because I don't know, I'm not sure if this is right or not, but I was kind of in love with him, but there was something that didn't feel right. But at that time, I wasn't able to, due to like lack of confidence in myself or whatever, to sort of actually pick up on that and act on it. So yeah, little crossroads moment. But we ended up moving back to Australia together and living with my parents for a while, which was somewhat of a disaster because I think they picked up on what was going on with him, but I couldn't see any of it. And we got married and had children, and yeah, ended up um, becoming a very abusive relationship with a lot of coercive control and narcissistic behaviors on his part, and I was the enabler of all of it, because of I remember writing in my journal back in the day, which I still have. Actually, it's just fascinating looking back on it now and seeing me write things like, oh wow, so I'm the wife of this troubled man and it's my role to support him and help him on his journey and all this kind of stuff. And it's just so interesting now that all the ways that he was relating to me was so wrong, and I squashed more and more of myself, disconnected more and more from myself, and we had children, as you do, thinking that that was going to solve everything or something. There was lots of drama in this relationship, as you can imagine, but playing the role that I was in the dynamic,
Mm.
I did my best to make everything okay. and suppress myself, people pleasing, all kinds of dynamics were playing out in that sort of sort of coercive control, sort of narcissistic relationship. Yeah, we had two children, and then yeah, things just got worse and worse. There were just so many things that were going on, and I was starting to hear that little voice in my head that was saying, I don't know if it was God speaking to me, or life speaking to me, or the universe, or there was a little voice I kept hearing that slowly got louder and louder, saying, hey, hey, hey,
Yeah.
hey, you're going to need to, hey, you're
Yes.
going to need to
And we
leave.
don't always listen.
I didn't listen. I was like, oh no, I'm going to do the best I can. By that stage, I was in pure survival mode and crying myself to sleep every night. Yeah, we had two children in the end. Um, and there were a lot of things that happened, in that time. I realized I was in an abusive relationship for years, but I couldn't leave, for all the reasons that, someone who's being abused in that kind of relationship can't leave, intelligent woman, strong woman, but can't leave from this dynamic. Fascinating, looking back now. But yeah, I think the thing that the day that I remember very clearly in my mind when I actually did take action to leave was when yeah, it was actually my daughter that helped me to hear that little voice finally in my head. And there was a particular day where, he was addicted to heroin and various other drugs, depending on what his drug of choice was that, at that time. Very troubled, very addicted man. And yeah, that made for a very difficult relationship. Naturally, it was horrendous. So there was one day when we were, yeah, I think he was preparing to go to work, and we were having an argument about money, because the amount of money it took to support his addiction was horrendous, and I felt like I didn't have any control over any of it. And so he just flew off the handle and threw a chair across the room, missing my 3.5-month-old baby's head by about that much. And was starting to become really threatening to me. He was also preparing to go to work. So I just went into keep everything okay mode, put the baby up and put him in his cot, sent my daughter to her room saying it's okay. Dad's gonna go to work soon. And so finally he went off to work. And yeah, I could hear my little daughter in the hallway as I came back from the door saying, hey, can't say that to dad because it's going to make him really angry. And something just clicked in my head in that moment, just went, hang on a minute. I don't want my daughter seeing her mother being treated like this. And you know what? I want to be in I need to be in a relationship, or I don't know what my words were at the time because I'm beyond it now. But it was something like, I don't want to be in a relationship. Like, this is not right. This is not right. This is not right. I don't want to be in a relationship where I can't say what I need to say and it be okay. Like, what? It was almost like a waking up moment. That voice in my head was like, okay, now, now. And so literally in that moment, I just spurred into action and I went around the house. I had actually thought about this a little bit beforehand, but didn't think it actually happened. I thought, okay, now's the time. I don't know what, I was completely numb, except in this mode where I was going around the house, picking up kids and stuff, and as much stuff as I could fit in the car. And I got in the car and I drove away, and I drove and I drove and I drove. And it's incredible. I ended up at my grandmother's house, quite a few suburbs away, and said, can I stay? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. And so we stayed, and yeah, it was quite a moment. Like, there was this sense of sort of elation and relief, but also this terror that was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? I don't even know. Like, what's he going to do? And how? But I was
It's
just
very
stuck in this
scary.
mode, very scary. And I had these two kids. Like, I have a 3.5-month-old baby and a 4.5-month old child, a daughter who, they need me. So I need to.
I can very
I
much
need
relate
to
with you.
yeah, we need to find shelter. I need to get, somewhere we can sleep tonight. I need to get food. I need, and so, and yeah, luckily, my mum and dad just happened to be in town as well. So I connected with them. They came as well. They live way out of town. And so, yeah, we started to, yeah, so that's kind of the big trauma story. There's lots of other things that connect with that. But that's kind of the big event that is really pivotal in sort of changing the way things were. And I think it's a story that is kind of a lot of things in my life, including my childhood experiences and the way my parents related to each other, sort of led to that moment in a lot of ways. Like I'm able to reflect on it now. At the time, I was just in pure survival mode. I couldn't think straight about anything. It was just, okay, food, shelter. I don't know, like, how do I do this thing? Um, yeah. And I remember at the time, and I'll just say one more thing. But there was, I had a friend who was really my angel in disguise. Like she was a friend I've known since the first year of high school, been in touch on and off. One of those friends that you can just call up after you haven't really spoken much in a year.
Those are
And
the
it's just
best
like
friends.
yesterday. I know. And you just go, oh, hey, how you going? You just carry on like you left off, even though 2 years has gone by or something like that. So she was one of those, just a gorgeous, darling person who at the time was like, oh, wow, okay, what do you need? And I was like, oh, I think I've got to go back, oh, yeah, as you do, every person who's been through, even left or thought about leaving an abusive relationship will relate to this. Oh, I've got to go back. I don't know what he's going to do. And, and there's this whole sort of pullback, even though you've left, you sort of feel like going back again. So you're not out of that cycle yet. And she was just like, oh, okay, right. Well, you've left for a reason. So maybe just pause for a while. And if you need to go back, that's fine. But just pause for a while. It's okay. I'm here. Do you want me to come and, yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to get off work at 4. So I'm going to come over and I'll cook dinner, look after the kids for a while, if you need to do something. And then, yeah, I've got something on later. But yeah, I can come over and just be here. And it was like, okay, yeah, okay, all right. And so she just kept being there and just there, no judgment, no, this is what you've got to do. Yeah, you've got to leave, rah, 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 which a lot of my other people I knew in my life at the time are like, oh my, this is horrible. You cannot go back. You can't do this. Don't do that. Well, that was this whole level. I felt so disempowered. But she was incredible in that she was just there. She was just this presence. And there was later on where I was frightened that he would come to our house and I was terrified. I mean, he did break in at one point when we weren't there and smash the place up. So my fears were not unfounded. But yeah, there was one time where I was quite frightened and we just needed relief from the situation we're in. And she said, "Hey, we're going away for 3 weeks. Why don't you just come over to our place?" Which he didn't know where she lived. Why don't you just come to our place and just live at our place for a while? Get a break, get a backyard. It's cool. The dog won't be there. And she had one of those huge baths with feet, and yeah, and she said I've got bubble bath, and seriously, just you know, just
Those are friends are amazing.
hang
And that's
hang
when
out at
you
my
go through
place.
that, you need that support.
And I was just like, oh, thank you. And yeah, it was that. And I think the other thing worth mentioning in the situation is I had a counselor who I started seeing, interestingly, and she was a holistic psychologist who I started seeing sort of for counseling around just not being very happy and how can I care for him more? Just going back a little bit before actually leaving. And I was just miserable and didn't know what to do. And she was like, oh, wow. And she started to help me to understand the situation I was in without ever saying, you have to leave. And I started saying, well, mate, I don't know. I think I might have to leave. Gosh, I don't know if I can do that. And she was like, well, you know what? I'm going to be here whether you decide to leave or not. I'm going to be here and to support you. And that was one of the most powerful things as well. And I think because she wasn't telling me that I had to leave, she was totally empowering me to make that decision myself. And she said, I'm just here. You come and see me weekly. We'll talk things through. We'll work a few things out. And she actually, did quite a bit of work that was sort of, she did some CBT with me, which was super helpful. And she also did some deeper work that she was starting to lean into herself as a holistic psychologist, which I'm looking back, I'm really glad she's a little bit of a pioneer in the field, I realize now, at that time, and sort of able to sort of work a little deeper and with what I was experiencing in my body a little bit. And although I really couldn't experience much in my body at that time, it was just, yeah, there's way too much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was sort of, they were the two people actually that really supported me at that time. I think both of them were angels actually. I don't know. And then yeah, so things sort of unfolded from there really. And then I went on this massive journey of coming back to me and myself through, I think it started with it started with a spiritual journey actually, which is interesting. I think yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but it started with, very spiritual kind of journey, like, why is this happening to me? Who am I? What? All of that, all of those kinds of questions. I was in so much pain. I didn't know what to do. And I was trying to raise these two kids and just look. And yeah, and then that ended up going through a journey of, you know, starting to lean into things like coaching. And gosh, I listened to all the things that Tony Robbins had to say. And I think there's a whole range of people in that sort of ilk, had motivational videos online, and, how you can heal this and motivate that and move that and do. And I was just really attracted to all that stuff. And I would listen to these things over and over, and they made me feel better in the moment and a little bit more empowered. It was quite interesting. And then I started to lean into sort of, more coaching type stuff. And yeah, then got on a journey of doing some sort of deeper work, which was transformational coaching. So it was working with and connected with, Gestalt therapy and sort of matrix therapy, that sort of stuff, and inner child work, and started really getting into that. And it made a big difference to me on my journey. And then, then I discovered sort of more embodied work and embodied processing, and started to get into that. And by this stage, I was starting to think that my calling was to actually support other people as well as do my own work. So even with the coaching, I was doing a coaching qualification at first, and my thought was, wow, I really want to be able to support, this has really helped me, and I really want to be able to support other women who are going through this kind of situation as well, like mothers who are, have been through a horrendous separation, dealing with an abusive leaving an abusive relationship, or thinking that they might need to. And so I really want to, be there and be that angel for them. So
But
that
you
was
had
how
your
I
two
kind of,
angels.
that's right. That's how I kind of, I kicked things off. So I think it was like, I started off with like women rising brave beyond separation. That was my sort of my thing. And I worked with a number of women coaching, and then doing this sort of more transformational coaching. And then, fast forward to today, and a number of different modalities under my belt, including the incredible embodied processing that I now do, and wrap around everything else that I do in tailoring, a solution for supporting someone, including, and these days I work with solo moms, as I said.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
going,
And I find when when they're struggling and they're suffering,
yeah,
many people do go searching.
yeah.
And maybe you wouldn't be where you are today if everything hadn't happened. Would you say that?
Definitely not. Like it was, I was on a trajectory in my life that honestly wasn't sustainable. But I didn't know that. I couldn't see that at the time, of course. There were
Yeah.
lots of patterns playing out, things from my childhood. And so something had to change. So perhaps, this was some sort of divine intervention. Right. We need to just shake things up. Just get
Yes.
this girl out of. I really believe that there was some kind of force at work here. It's bigger than me, that's for sure. Looking back. Yeah, and
Or
I think
God
that
couldn't be,
has been a
God can be
guiding
good.
force along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes when
Well,
we're in our
yeah,
darkest times,
yeah,
like we don't feel like we're going to get out of it, but you clearly
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's not, I don't, I hope it's okay to say I don't believe in God in the organized religion sense of the
Yes.
word, but I do relate to God now in my own way. And I don't
Yeah.
know what that really is. It's part of my exploration that I'm doing now, but I definitely sense and connect with, and yeah, just have this, I don't know, it's almost like this presence that it's bigger than me, and it's a part of almost like a guiding, I don't know, a guiding force. I'm kind of struggling to articulate it because it's something that's emerging, in my life. But I can see, looking back on all these experiences, that this was guiding me as
Pardon?
yeah,
Sorry, I missed the
in
last part.
this was this whatever it was guiding me
Yeah.
on this journey, and I really feel more and more a really strong connection, like, and it helps me to actually feel connected. It's like, oh wow, and I just feel this sense of being connected to every other human being, and this and this force, this being, perhaps, I don't know, this force that has at play in the universe, in the world, in our world, that has supported me all this time, and has actually at times gone, hey honey, hey, come on. What are
Listen,
you
listen.
doing?
And you're like, and he's like, please
Yeah.
listen. Hey, hey, hey.
Yeah, I know this is hard, I know, and yeah, and just brought people in that have, it's almost like when you need it, the messenger, the teacher appears, and that's definitely been the case in my life, and trusting that more and more. I think the spiritual stuff is what I needed at the beginning because I couldn't connect with anything else, and it was almost like this place of
I
absolute
think,
surrender that I got to. My body can't take anymore. I don't know what to do. It was just total surrender, like, take
yeah.
me now or tell me what I need to do. Like, honestly, it was just, I was lying on the floor, just like, yeah,
And we all
it
find
was
God
amazing.
in all kinds of ways, right? Like there's so many ways,
Yeah.
and that's good that you found him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I don't know
and
if
it
it's a
was your
him,
own way,
but
but
anyway,
and
yeah, yeah,
you went through a lot,
yeah,
and I'm sorry that you had to experience all of that.
yeah,
Um, but it sounds
yeah,
like it's shaped who you have become.
yeah. I think it's helped me to come back to me, actually. I think I got lost, and perhaps even as early as in my mother's womb is where the got lost happened as well, because of her own stuff that was happening at the time. Like, we know that a baby 3 months in utero, like, it's the baby's nervous system will sync with its mother's at that time. So this is what we know in relational neuroscience, right? So, a baby whose mother is extremely anxious, the way my mother was, or not connected to her baby, um, there's going to be different chemicals at play, and so therefore, when the baby comes out, there's going to be higher levels of cortisol, for instance, and so the baby's nervous system is preparing for a world that perhaps isn't safe. So, I was a very fussy baby, and I've had anxiety struggles all my life, and yeah, a lot of the things that I experienced along the way kind of make sense when you look at it like that. Yeah.
And how do you find embodied processing has helped you or impacted your life?
Um, Incredibly, actually. I feel very much like leaning into that is like coming home. Like, it's almost like, oh, this is oh wow, okay. This really fits. This really works. And um yeah, it sort of helps to connect all the other things, all the other modalities that I've learned, and to enhance them almost, and bring it's the glue that brings them all together. And I think it's really helped me because it's helped to really heal, mend. I don't know, not that we need to mend, right? From what we know, but it's really helped to get that connection, to reconnect that connection between my mind and my body, to help me to really connect with my body, which is here experiencing my life, you know. Whereas when you're in survival mode, as you know, when you're in that mode where, you know, everything that's happening to you is so painful and there's so many trauma imprints that are playing out, it's just, I was numb, completely numb in my body right at the beginning. And so connecting with embodied processing, I did in a very cerebral way at the beginning, very sort of, you know, conscious knowledge that I could use, but I could just sense there was something deeper that I could experience. And so I took a deep breath and moved past the terror of connecting with another student to practice when at the beginning. And that was an incredible experience. I was so blessed with the you know, people that I practiced with right at the beginning. I think I was one of the first group of students that went through embodied processing, and I think I was the second one to become a practitioner or something like that. But I think once you become a practitioner, that's where the journey really starts. So, and I'm still on that journey of learning more. There's so much to learn, so much to know, you know, about myself and about other people and how I can support them with what I do and who I am.
You're an amazing woman. And it sounds like you're a very strong woman.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I don't always feel that way. Goodness. There's times when I collapse in a heap and go, I would swear at this point, but I'm not going to do that on your channel. But you know,
But we all have our moments.
exactly. I think, and you know, that's all very human. When you,
Yes.
yeah, things come up in you, and to be able to, I mean, these days to be able to, you know, experience those parts of me needing to be seen and heard in a very different way, it's been so helpful, just to allow them to move within a sense of holding that I'm now able to provide them, and just allow them to move in the way they need to. And with someone else, like, it's very handy to bring in another EP practitioner as well. At times, I have my own practitioner, my own you know, therapist that I see regularly, because I think it's so important,
To do our
you know,
own
as a
work.
therapist, to keep doing my own work at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing your
My
story, your
pleasure.
life, about your family, your friends, your spiritual journey.
My pleasure. I hope it can sow some seeds and perhaps help someone else as well. Give them like a seed of hope that, hey, you know, it's horrendous like it was for me back in those days, and that leaving that abusive relationship. Oh my goodness, I came right down to rock bottom, whatever that is for you. But yeah, however it is, there is hope, and yeah, you can move beyond it, just little by little by little.
Thank you. Yes, but you took the words right out of my mouth. There is hope.
Yeah, without doubt.
And many of us
Yeah,
have been through it. Rock bottom, and there's
yeah,
always hope. Even when it feels like it's never going to get better,
yeah,
it can get better.
yeah. Yes, yes, I'm testament to that. Yes, it happened time and time again. Like, oh wow, okay, radio. Come on, Gretel, pick yourself up. Oh, do the next thing, just the next thing. Yeah, and that way you start to build that relationship with yourself as you move through it too. Is quite incredible, isn't it?
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.